So now we're gonna talk about the Western Conference Decision A game in this preview, and I'm still wearing DC United because again, DC is the only team that is not playing on Decision Day, and they're gonna be eliminated no matter what. But we'll start off with the first one, which is the Rocky Mountain Cup between the Colorado Rapids versus RSL. Now, this Rocky Mountain Cup would have some relevancy if RSL didn't actually win it in their second ever meeting, and that of course is the case after winning the first two. But coming into this one, Colorado with a 5-12-16 record, and despite that record, they still are playing very hard under their interim head coach. And I think it's got to be at least kind of a bonus the fact that they didn't win the wooden spoon this year, and TFC got that honor. Whereas for RSL, 13-8-12, and in terms of the all-time meeting, 28-13-15 in favor of RSL. RSL has really dominated this Rocky Mountain Cup, though when it comes to when they face against the Rapids on the road, it's been kind of a little bit iffy. Though that being said, they've been a very good team on the road. They've been a much better team this season on the road compared to when they're at home, which is why it's kind of interesting that if you're RSL, you're currently sitting in fifth in the standings. Do you want to get home field advantage? Because knowing that you're better on the road this season, and this is what I said about Minnesota too, with them being better on the road compared to playing at home, do you want to get home field advantage? Because if you win this game, you can climb as high as third place and you get home field advantage. But the bad news about that is they haven't been good this season at the Riot. So I wonder what Pablo Mastroeni is going to do. Is he gonna maybe try to play 4D chess, knowing that if they can just not finish well and maybe sitting in that fifth position and not have home field advantage, they'll get their better chance of winning because they've been a very good road team. They've been one of the best road team this season in MLS. Now, in terms of the relevancy rating, I'll give it a 2 out of 5, and it would have been higher if the Rocky Mountain Cup was still up in grabs. But again, I think the only relevancy is RSL trying to get themselves home field advantage, or at least probably try not to get home field advantage because of them not playing very well this season at the Riot. So yeah, that's kind of maybe the relevancy. Like this might be one of the few meetings where a team that's fighting for home field advantage actually doesn't want to because of the way that they haven't been very good this season at home, and that Pablo Mastroeni want to play 4D chess and maybe lose this game on purpose so that they can make sure that they will play that first round matchup. In terms of, well, they still will at least play one home game, but they know that they'll at least have two road games, and that their first game is going to be on the road, which will be, I would say, an advantage for them because again they play much better this season on the road. But moving on, we got Sporting KC versus Minnesota United. So this is a matchup like what I said in the last video, talk about the Eastern Conference matchup. It's very similar to the NYCFC versus Chicago game, where both of these teams that is currently below the red line. The team that wins this game doesn't necessarily clinch playoff position because they still need help. But whoever loses this game will be eliminated from playoff contention. Now, Minnesota 10-11-12, while Sporting KC is 11-8-14. And in terms of the all-time meaning, Sporting KC has pretty much got the better of Minnesota 13-4-6. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Sporting KC has been very good when they're playing against Minnesota at Children's Mercy Park. As I mentioned, they have never lost to Minnesota in the regular season when the game is at Children's Mercy Park, and this game is at Children's Mercy Park. So again, Minnesota is going to have to do something that they have never done before in the regular season, similar to how they're going to have to do something that they did in 2020. Where remember that playoff game where they were playing against Sporting KC, and it was at Children's Mercy Park. They finally broke the curse and get their first win there. They need to do the same thing in this one, and also hope that either Dallas or San Jose or even Portland will lose their games, and then they will sneak into the playoffs. But they're currently in 11th place, 2 points below the red line, while Sporting KC is currently in 10th, 2 points below the red line. Now, one thing I did mention in the NYCFC versus Chicago game that I'll mention in this one, if this game does end in a draw, I mean it kind of doesn't really help both of these team either. I think both of these team would eliminate it even if this game ends in the draw because they're 2 points below the red line. So again, over these teams, they need to win this one, and because of that, the relevancy rating has to be 5 out of 5. It has to be similar to what I said in that Chicago NYCFC game, and I would say this one is more relevant than that one because both of these teams are literally deadlocked with each other in 10th position, and it's pretty much a win, and you hope that you can go move on depending on other resources, but the loser is pretty much done this season. And just like what I've said in that last video with Chicago and NYCFC, both of these teams will be very disappointed about how it if they do lose this game. I mean, for Sporting KC, they've been fighting hard to try to get themselves over the red line, but they can't really quite do so. Whereas for Minnesota, again, this season, that implosion that they had in September and the firing of Adrian Heath. I mean, ideally, if they don't make it to the playoffs, I mean, I guess it's a disappointment, but at least it could be a fresh start in terms of them potentially getting a new head coach for the first time in franchise history, at least in MLS that is, and we'll see how this team will go heading into next season. Then we move on to the next one, which is LA Galaxy versus FC Dallas. So the Galaxy 8, 12, and 13. They're early eliminated from playoffs, but they're definitely going to try to play the spoiler role, trying to beat FC Dallas in this game that is currently in 8th place with a 10, 13, and 10 record. They're currently 2 points above the red line, and they're currently tied with the Quakes in terms of the spot that is just above the red line, but they do have the tiebreaker because they have a better goal differential. Now, in terms of the relevancy rating, it's 3.5 out of 5. And actually, you know what? Because I'm talking about this game, I might as well just talk about this game too between the San Jose Earthquakes and Austin FC because both of these games are very, very similar. The Quakes 10, 13, and 10. Austin is 10, 8, and 15. And the Quakes with a 2, 4, and 0 record for Austin. They're currently in ninth place, 2 points above the red line whereas for Austin, they're already eliminated from the playoffs, and I'll pretty much give the same relevancy rating too, because two very similar game where Dallas needs to win on the road so that they can make it to the playoffs, and the Quakes need to win against Austin to try to make it to the playoffs. They have to beat against teams that have already eliminated. But then on the other hand, you can see these eliminated teams have a chance to maybe help out Sporting KC and Minnesota or even Portland in cases in terms of staying above the red line of getting a win and create some absolute chaos in the final day of the season, and we'll see whether or not if that is going to be the case. And for Dallas, I would say that they probably have a tougher kind of matchup because they're facing against a Galaxy team that, even though they're eliminated, they're still going to play hard, and that they're gonna play some crazy kind of game. I mean, don't be surprised that this game could end up to be a very high scoring game because that's kind of how Galaxy game has been lately, and that there's gonna be just crazy amount of shots total so forth. Though you could say that, but Dallas is also a team that's been struggling on the attacking end, and not to mention they have not got a win in the last 5 games. All 5 of their previous game has ended in a draw. And whereas for the Quakes, I mean, as much as they've been very good this season at home, and Austin is a team that they have never lost in their history. Again, decision day, anything can happen, and I have seen before. I've seen some heartbreak that the Quakes have suffered, and that yeah, let's just hope that this, of course, is not going to be one of those games that is the case. But now we talk about Portland versus the Houston Dynamo. So the Timbers 11, 10, and 12, while Houston is 13, 9, 9 and 11. All-time meeting 10, 8, and 7 in favor of the Portland Timbers. Now, despite the fact that the Timbers is set in the Western Conference, there's still a chance that the Timbers could miss out on the playoffs. They're only 2 points above the red line. If everything goes wrong for the Timbers in this one, they could miss out on the playoffs. And knowing how last season went in terms of decision day of how it kind of went terribly wrong for them, yeah, they're Timbers fans are probably not going to say that they're automatically guaranteed to make it to the playoffs. But for Houston, they're currently in fourth position. They can still climb as high as second, but they can drop as low as sixth place in the standings. And this is kind of the other thing about how, even though the Timbers needs to win this one, Houston also needs to win in this one too, and that Ben Olsen team wants to have home field advantage, knowing that they are a very good team this season at home. I mean, they've always been the case when they play at their home ground against their opposition, and not to mention that it feels like they have definitely been a lot better this season on the road, and the fact that this team is still riding on that U.S. Open Cup win wave, the fact that they've still are red hot right now, and have a lot of believe, and this is one of those teams where I will not be surprised if the Houston Dynamo can make it all the way to the Western Conference Final, because we always see this where when a team is hot heading into the playoffs, they ride that wave, and feels like Houston is basically in that role, and this is where the Portland Timbers got to be careful because again, usually when the Timbers are playing at home, it's a guarantee win. But as it's been the case for the past couple of years, and even this season too, they have not been very good this season at Providence Park. either, and that against a Dynamo team that has a really are very research are in a very big resurgence under Ben Olsen. Don't be surprised that the Timbers could lose this game. And again, if resort goes wrong for them, they could be eliminated from the playoffs, and we'll be having deja vu all over again from last season, where the Timbers they kind of had a good run lately, but then now it seems like things are falling apart at the worst time possible, and they end up missing out on the playoffs on the final day of the season. Now, moving on, we got St. Louis versus Seattle. Oh, I forgot to tell you about the RELC rating, 4 out of 5. Obviously, a lot of that has to do with the Timbers fighting for playoffs and Houston trying to fight for home field advantage. But we move on to the other Cascadia team, the Seattle Sounders. They're going to be playing against St. Louis City. Now, St. Louis pretty much have nothing to play for. I mean, no matter what happens in this game, they've already clinched the top spot in the West with a 17-5-11 record. But the Seattle Sounders, they are still trying to get home field advantage too with a 13-11-9 record, and they've only they win the only meeting between both of these teams. And again, for the Sounders, they're currently in third place. They can climb as high as their favorite position to finish in the regular season, which is second place, but they can also drop as low as sixth place in the standings. So they're again the gaps when you look at the Western Conference playoff seeding, it's relatively big. So some of these teams that are high in the standing, they can still drop as low as to a point where they could actually miss out on getting a first round home field advantage. So yeah, we'll see whether that is the case. But knowing the fact that the Sounders love to finish second position, don't be surprised they'll probably get a win in this one and somehow finish second place, because it's almost like it's a given for the Seattle Sounders every single year besides last year, which was an outlier. They have to finish second in the regular season, and they have a chance to do so too, as I'll talk about the next matchup, where maybe LAFC could be slipping up in that game two. But that being said, in terms of relevancy rating, I'll say it's a two out of five. I mean, St. Louis doesn't really have a lot to play for, and Seattle, even though they have that home field advantage to play for, they're kind of sitting in a pretty good position where it's gonna take a lot for them to not have home field advantage, even though they can still drop as low as sixth place. That's kind of like the worst case scenario for the Sounders. Because moving on into the next one between the Vancouver Whitecaps versus LAFC. So this is a matchup that you would think that it's an easy win for LAFC, but then you got to remember they've always tends to struggle when they play against Vancouver at BC plays. Like if you don't look at the CCL kind of matchup, this is a team that has always had problem against the Vancouver Whitecaps. I don't think they have won against the Whitecaps at BC plays. Besides that CCL first round, or besides that CCL kind of battle that they had earlier this season. But in terms of the all-time meetings, 6-3-5 in favor of LAFC. Again, it's a really closely matched, mainly because Vancouver's tends to always do gets the better of LAFC, and I think they already got the better of LAFC this season on the road too. In fact, their first win on the road this season was against LAFC, so they have a chance to do a double against LAFC in this one. But in terms of Vancouver, they're currently sitting in sixth place. They can still climb as high as third place, but if they do lose this game, they'll still stay in sixth place no matter what. Whereas for LAFC, they're currently second position. If they win this game, they'll basically guarantee they finish second. But if they lose this game, they could still miss out on getting some home playoff advantage in the first round, and can drop as low as fifth position. So yeah, again, I think this game, in terms of relevancy, I'll give it a 2.5 out of 5, knowing the fact that both of these teams are still playing for top four position. But I would say that it would take a lot for LAFC to drop but below to the point where they can finish as low as fifth place, whereas for Vancouver, they can still get above the top four spot and get home field advantage, but it's kind of highly unlikely because of how things are in terms of the seedings and so forth. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of looking at the Western Conference and the preview of these Western Conference game. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and as always, let me know in the comments below your prediction of these Western Conference Decision Day games and how the table would look by the end of Saturday night, because by the end of Saturday night, we will know exactly what the playoff matchup is going to be for the Audi 2023 MLS playoffs. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.